My name is Hannah Whitmore. I'm 31 years old, living in Savannah, Georgia. I work as a pediatric nurse, though if you'd asked me 20 years ago, I never would have believed I'd make it this far. Because truth be told, I've always been too trusting, too ready to believe love was unconditional, too blind to see betrayal until it was already inside my bones. And when I was just 13 years old, my parents proved that trust can be shattered in a single night. They abandoned me, left me on the porch of my uncle's mansion with nothing but a single suitcase. And 15 years later, those same parents came back, not with an apology, but with a demand that nearly destroyed me. Don't forget to subscribe to Unspoken Vows for more raw confessions like this. And tell me in the comments, where are you watching from tonight? The night my parents left me is etched into my memory with a sharpness I wish I could dull. It was late summer in Georgia. Humid, sticky air. The kind of night when the crickets screamed louder than the silence inside my parents' car. I sat in the back seat, clutching the handle of my small pink suitcase. Inside, a few changes of clothes, my worn copy of Little Women, and the stuffed rabbit I'd had since I was a baby. "Where are we going?" I whispered. Neither of them answered. My mother stared out the window, her jaw set. My father gripped the wheel so tightly I could see his knuckles whitening in the glow of the dashboard lights. Finally, after what felt like forever, the car slowed down. I recognized the street, oak trees arching overhead, lanterns casting shadows. On the cobblestones, my Uncle Richard's house. He was my father's older brother, a wealthy bachelor who'd made his fortune in real estate. His house was the kind of place people in Savannah whispered about: columns, balconies, a sprawling front porch with wicker chairs that no one ever sat in. The car rolled to a stop in front of the gate. My stomach dropped. "Why are we here?" I asked. My father didn't turn around. He just said, flat, cold, "Get your things." I blinked. "What do you mean?" My mother finally turned, her eyes glassy. "Hannah, you'll be better off here, with your uncle." My chest tightened. "Better off? But I'm your daughter." Her lips trembled, but she looked away. "We can't do this anymore." I remember the way the crickets seemed to go silent, the way the air thickened, pressed against my chest. "Please," I whispered. "Please don't leave me here. I'll be good. I'll try harder." But my father had already popped the trunk. He dragged my suitcase out, set it on the curb, and walked back to the driver's seat without a single word. "Mom?" I begged, tears streaming down my cheeks. She shook her head, a single tear slipping down her cheek. And then she closed the car door. I chased them down the driveway, barefoot, my suitcase tumbling behind me. "Don't go, please," I screamed, but the taillights glowed red, then disappeared into the night, and just like that, I was an orphan with living parents. The porch light flicked on. Uncle Richard stepped outside in his robe, holding a glass of bourbon. His hair was silver, his face lined but strong. "Hannah?" he said, confused. "What on earth are you doing here?" I was sobbing so hard I could barely breathe. They left me," I stammered. His expression shifted. First confusion, then anger, then something else. Pity, maybe. He knelt, pulling me into his arms. "It's all right. You're safe now. You're with me." That was the moment my life split in two, before abandonment and after. Uncle Richard raised me like the daughter he never had. He gave me stability, education, and a chance to dream. But no matter how safe I felt in his house, a part of me never stopped aching. Because in the back of my mind, I kept thinking, one day they'll come back. One day they'll say they're sorry, and 15 years later, they did come back. But not with love, not with regret. They came back with greed. I'll never forget that night. The knock at my door, the faces I hadn't seen in 15 years, the words that made my blood run cold. "Hannah," my mother said, her voice trembling. "We need your help. You owe us." I was 13 when my parents abandoned me, at my uncle's door. And now, 15 years later, they stood in front of me again. Not to say sorry, not to explain, but to demand. The night they came back, I had just finished a 12-hour shift at the hospital. My scrubs still smelled faintly of antiseptic and baby lotion. I was exhausted, my hair tied in a messy bun, my shoes aching on my feet. I had just poured myself a glass of sweet tea when the doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone. When I opened the door, there they were. My parents. My father looked older, grayer at the temples, but his jaw was still tight, his eyes still sharp. My mother's hair was streaked with silver, her dress pressed but wrinkled at the edges, as if she had been tugging at it nervously. "Hannah," she whispered, her voice almost rehearsed. "It's been so long." I froze in the doorway. My throat closed up. My chest felt like it had been slammed with a weight. Finally, I found my voice. "What are you doing here?" My father didn't waste a second. "We need to talk." Need. That was the first word out of his mouth. Not sorry. Do not forgive us. Just need. And in that moment I knew, whatever this was, it wasn't about me. Kept the door half closed. 15 years. Not a word. And now you need something? My mother reached for me, her hand trembling. "Please, sweetheart, just hear us out." I pulled back. The word sweetheart stung like acid. I almost shut the door right there. But something inside me, the old, too trusting Hannah, hesitated. I opened the door just enough. "Fine, 5 minutes." They stepped inside. The air shifted. My safe little home suddenly felt smaller, invaded. They sat on my couch like they owned the place. My father leaned forward, elbows on his knees, his voice firm. "Hannah, your uncle has done well for himself, and we know he's taken good care of you. But the truth is, we've fallen on hard times." I clenched my fists. "And what does that have to do with me?" My mother's voice cracked. "Your sister, she's in debt. A terrible debt. $250,000. If she doesn't pay soon, she could lose everything." I blinked. "Sister?" The word hit me like a slap. Because the day they abandoned me, I was an only child. "What are you talking about?" I asked, my voice sharp. My mother glanced at my father. He nodded, as if giving her permission. "Hannah, you have a younger sister. Her name is Lila. She was born 2 years after we left you." My chest tightened. "You mean after you threw me away?" She flinched. "We made mistakes. But Lila, she needs help. And you—" I cut her off. "Me? You think I owe you anything?" My father's jaw hardened. "You've had every advantage because of Richard. A home, an education, a career. We gave you that chance by placing you with him." My blood boiled. "You abandoned me. Don't twist it into a sacrifice." I could feel my hands trembling, my throat tightening. 15 years of silence. 15 years of questions. And this was their grand return? Not love, not regret. Just a plea for money, and worse, a demand that I save the daughter they chose over me. I remembered the night on the porch, the sound of their car pulling away, my voice screaming, begging. Now here they were, asking me to save the child who had replaced me. I stood. "I think you should leave." My mother's eyes widened. "Hannah, please," I snapped. "No, you don't get to walk back into my life after 15 years and pretend I'm still your daughter. You made your choice. Now live with it." My father's voice dropped, cold and sharp. "You're being selfish. Do you know what people will say if you refuse your own blood? You'll look heartless. I laughed bitterly. Heartless? From the man who left his child on a doorstep? That night, they left my house, but not before my mother whispered as she walked out the door. You'll regret this, Hannah. Family is forever. You can't erase us. But I had already erased them. At least, I thought I had. What I didn't know was that this was just the beginning. Their return would unravel everything I thought was safe. My job, my reputation, even my inheritance. Because my parents weren't just asking for help. They were planning to take everything. My parents came back into my life after 15 years. Not with love, not with apologies, but with a demand, $250,000 for the sister I never knew existed. I thought I had slammed the door on them that night. But betrayal has a way of finding cracks to slip through. 2 weeks later, I was sipping lukewarm coffee in the break room at the children's hospital when my friend Claire leaned over and whispered, "Hey, Hannah, I didn't know you had family in town." I froze. "What do you mean?" She tilted her head. "A man came by the front desk asking for you. Said he was your father. The receptionist sent him away, but he seemed pretty insistent." My heart sank. "They don't belong." "Here," I muttered. Claire raised an eyebrow. "Family drama?" I forced a smile, though my stomach churned. Something like that. Inside, I was trembling. They were showing up at my job now. That evening, the phone rang. Unknown number. I answered anyway. "Don't hang up," my father's voice snapped. I stayed silent. "You embarrassed us the other night," he continued. "We came to you for help, and you slammed the door in our face." I whispered. "You left me with nothing, and now you want me to save the daughter you chose, instead of me?" "She's your sister," he said, voice rising. "No," I snapped. "She's your daughter, not mine." There was a long silence. Then his voice dropped low, cold. "You think you're untouchable because Richard raised you, but you're still one of us. And one way or another, you'll pay your debt to this family." The line went dead. Debt. That word rang in my ears. I owed them nothing. Nothing. And yet, a part of me, the frightened 13-year-old still begging on that driveway, felt the fear creep in. What if they didn't stop? What if they tried to take more? That weekend, I drove to my Uncle Richard's mansion, the same house where I had been left, shaking and sobbing, all those years ago. He welcomed me with a warm hug, his silver hair glinting in the late afternoon. "Son, you look troubled," he said, pouring me a glass of sweet tea. I told him everything: the visit, the demand, the phone call. His jaw tightened. "They have no right. After what they did to you." He shook his head. "Hannah, you don't owe them a single dime." I swallowed hard. "But what if they don't stop?" He leaned forward. "Then we'll make sure they can't touch you. I'll call my lawyer. We'll protect everything. Your job, your inheritance, your future." For a moment, I felt safe. But safety, I was learning, was an illusion. Monday morning, I walked into the hospital and something felt off. Conversations hushed when I entered. Colleagues exchanged glances. Finally, Claire pulled me aside. "Hannah, did you really cut off your parents after everything they did for you?" My stomach dropped. "What are you talking about?" She hesitated. "They came by. They told people you abandoned them, that your uncle brainwashed you, that you're heartless." My chest tightened. They weren't just begging anymore. They were poisoning my name. That evening, a letter arrived in my mailbox. No return address, but I recognized the handwriting instantly. My mother's. I unfolded the paper. "Hannah, we don't understand why you've turned against us. You've been living in luxury while your real family suffers. Your sister cries herself to sleep every night, knowing her own blood refuses to help her. Please, don't make us go to the community with this. Don't make us tell them what you've become. I crumpled the paper, tears stinging my eyes. They were blackmailing me with shame. I lay awake that night, staring at the ceiling. I thought about my patients at the hospital, the trust people placed in me, and the way colleagues admired me for my compassion. And now my parents wanted to twist that compassion into a weapon. If the community believed their lies, what would happen to me? My job, my reputation, my uncle's trust, everything I had built could crumble. The next day, I drove back to my uncle's. He was on the porch, sipping bourbon, when I handed him the letter. He read it slowly, his jaw tightening with each line. Finally, he looked at me, his eyes blazing. "They're trying to ruin you, to make you bend," I whispered. "What do I do?" His voice was steady. You fight with the truth. We'll gather every piece of evidence, every record of what they did. If they want a war, we'll give them one." That night, as I drove home, headlights glared in my rearview mirror. The same car followed me for miles, turning when I turned, slowing when I slowed. My chest tightened, my palms gripped the wheel. When I finally pulled into my driveway, the car paused at the curb. I caught a glimpse of the driver. It was my father, his eyes locked on mine through the glass. Cold, unblinking. Then the car rolled, away into the night. That was the moment I realized. This wasn't just a family dispute anymore. It was a war. My parents weren't asking anymore. They were stalking me, following me home, spreading lies about me at work. And late at night, when the house was quiet, I could feel it. The weight of their betrayal presses down, suffocating me. I stopped sleeping. Every creak of the floorboards made me flinch. Every flash of headlights outside sent my pulse racing. I'd lie awake, staring at the shadows on my ceiling, whispering to myself, maybe if I give them something, they'll stop. But then, I'd remember the porch, 13 years old, begging them not to leave me, and their car is pulling away. "No," I'd whisper. "They don't get to take more." The next week at work, I noticed the shift. Colleagues who once greeted me warmly now avoided my eyes. Conversation stopped when I entered the room. At lunch, Claire finally said it. "Hannah, people are saying you're cold, that you abandoned your family when they needed you most." My chest tightened. "Do you believe that?" She hesitated. "Too long." "I don't know what to believe," she whispered. It was like the ground crumbled under my feet. If even Claire doubted me, who else would? One evening, I came home to find another letter slipped under my door. This time the handwriting was unfamiliar, softer, younger. "Dear Hannah, I'm your sister. My name is Lila. I don't know why you hate me, but I grew up hearing about you. Mom said you turned your back on us. I just want to meet you. I want a sister. Please don't punish me for their mistakes." I sat at my kitchen table staring at the letter until tears blurred the words. Part of me ached. What if she was innocent? What if she were just another victim of their poison? But another part of me knew. This letter wasn't her idea. It was bait. Nights blurred into days. I stopped eating. Coffee became my only meal. My scrubs hung loose on me. At the hospital, I snapped at a patient's mother, a kind woman just asking about her child's chart. The look in her eyes, hurt, confused, made me want to crawl out of my own skin. I wasn't myself anymore. I was a ghost, unraveling in silence. One Sunday, Uncle Richard showed up at my door. He took one look at me and frowned. "You're fading, Hannah," he said softly. "I'm fine," I whispered. He shook his head. "No, they're getting to you. That's what they want." Tears burned my eyes. "I can't do this anymore. Everyone believes them, even at work. I feel like I'm drowning and no one cares. He gripped my hands. Listen to me. You are not alone. I believe you, and I will not let them destroy you. His words steadied me, for a moment. But when he left, the silence came crashing back. At 2 a.m., the phone rang. I picked up, half asleep, heart racing. A voice hissed through the line. My father. You think Richard can protect you? He won't live forever. And when he's gone, everything will be ours again, including you. My breath caught. Leave me alone, I whispered. He laughed. Low. Cold. We're family, Hannah. You can't erase blood. The line clicked dead. I sat there, phone pressed to my ear, body trembling. The next morning, I called in sick. I couldn't face the hospital. Couldn't face the whispers. I curled up on the couch, staring at nothing, tears soaking into the fabric. I thought of all the years I had built a life out of broken pieces. And now, those pieces were slipping away again. But as I lay there, numb, a single thought began to burn through the fog. If they wanted a war, then I needed to stop hiding. I needed to fight. But first, I had to survive the collapse. My parents had poisoned my reputation, stalked me, and even used my younger sister's name as bait. By part 4, I had collapsed, isolated, sleepless, and drowning. But sometimes collapse isn't the end. Sometimes it's the first spark of something stronger. The morning after I called in sick, I stood in front of my bathroom mirror. My eyes were swollen, ringed with dark circles. My cheeks hollow. For the first time in weeks, I whispered to myself, no more. No more letting them dictate the narrative. No more shrinking into silence. If they wanted war, I would give them the truth. Dug out a box from my closet. Inside were the things I'd kept all these years. Letters from my uncle, report cards, photos of my 13th birthday. The last birthday with my parents, proof of abandonment, of those who had raised me. I sat cross-legged on the floor, sorting every scrap, every date, every signature. Then I opened my laptop and started a new folder. The truth. That evening, I visited Claire at her apartment. She looked nervous when she opened the door. Claire, I said softly, I need you to hear me out. Please. We sat at her kitchen table. I told her everything. How they left me. How Richard took me in. The lies they were spreading now. I showed her the letter from my mother, the one from Lila. Her face shifted. Shock, anger, guilt. Oh my God, she whispered. I thought maybe they were telling the truth. I swallowed hard. That's what they do. Twist things until you don't know what's real anymore. Claire reached across the table, squeezing my hand. Okay, I believe you. And if you need someone to back you up, you have me. For the first time in weeks, I didn't feel entirely alone, and I want to ask you, watching right now, if this happened to you, would you stay silent or fight back? Have you ever been betrayed by someone close? What did you do? Don't forget to subscribe to Unspoken Vows for more raw confessions like this. Over the next week, I worked quietly. On my lunch breaks at the hospital, I photocopied documents, my birth certificate, old legal guardianship papers signed by my uncle, proof that my parents had relinquished me. I requested bank records, showing years of support from Richard and none from them. I dug through public records and found court filings of debts, my father's gambling, my mother's foreclosures. Every discovery felt like a blade sharpened, waiting for the right moment. One night, as I left work, I noticed a eye shadow by my car. My mother. Hannah, she whispered, stepping forward. I froze, keys tight in my hand. What are you doing here? Her eyes were red-rimmed. Please, stop this. Stop digging. You don't know what you're getting into. I narrowed my eyes. What am I getting into? Or what you're trying to hide? She trembled. They'll come after you if you don't give us the money. They? I asked sharply. But she shook her head, glanced over her shoulder, and hurried away into the night. Her words echoed in my mind. They'll come after you. Who was they? This wasn't just about family anymore. This was bigger. And it made me more determined than ever. Uncle Richard introduced me to his lawyer, a sharp woman named Elaine. I handed her the growing folder of evidence. Elaine flipped through, nodding slowly. This is strong. If they try to sue, smear you, or claim inheritance, we'll bury them with this. Her voice was calm, but her eyes gleamed with quiet steel. You did the right thing, Hannah, she said. You're not just surviving. You're building your defense. That night, I sat at my desk, staring at the folder marked The Truth. But then I noticed something strange. A second envelope slipped under my door. No return address. I opened it with trembling hands. Inside was a single photograph. My father sitting at a bar, whispering to a man I didn't recognize. On the back, in block letters, was one sentence. This is who he owes. My stomach dropped, because the betrayal wasn't just personal anymore. It was dangerous. I thought I was gathering strength in silence, a folder of proof, a trusted lawyer, an ally in Claire. But the moment I received that anonymous photograph, the one showing my father whispering to a stranger, I realized I wasn't the only one watching, and soon my parents began to suspect I wasn't as broken as they thought. The hospital, I felt the shift. A supervisor pulled me aside after rounds. Hannah, she said carefully, I don't know what's going on in your personal life, but people are talking. Patients' families have asked if you're unstable. My chest tightened. Unstable? She lowered her voice. Apparently, your family has been reaching out, telling people you're estranged, that you can't be trusted with responsibility. I gripped the edge of the counter, the world tilting. They're trying to ruin me, I whispered. Her eyes softened, but her words didn't comfort. Just keep your head down. Don't give anyone more reason to doubt you. Keep my head down. That's what I'd done for 15 years, and look where it had gotten me. That evening, I pulled into my driveway. Their car was waiting. I sat frozen behind the wheel as my parents climbed out. My father's expression was tight, furious. You've been digging, he said flatly. I forced a calm voice. I don't know what you're talking about. Mother stepped closer, her voice trembling. Please, Hannah, stop this before it's too late. I stared at her. Too late for who? For you? Or for me? My father slammed his hand on my hood, making me jump. You think you can hide behind Richard's money and lawyers? You think you're smarter than us? I swallowed hard, keeping my voice steady. No, I think I'm finally smarter about you. For a moment, his mask slipped, rage flashing across his face before he forced it back into a smile. Careful, Hannah, he whispered. You don't want to make enemies you can't handle. Then they got back in their car and drove away. I sat in my driveway long after they left, trembling. They knew. They knew I wasn't folding. And if they knew, how long before they tried to stop me for good? The next night, I was walking to my car in the hospital parking lot when I felt it. Eyes. On me. I turned. A man stood by the far corner, half in shadow. The same man from the photograph. My pulse raced. Can I help you? I called. He didn't answer. He just lit a cigarette, the flame briefly illuminating his face, then disappeared into the dark. I rushed to my uncle's house, the photograph clutched in my hand. Uncle Richard studied it, his brows furrowed. That's Frank Malloy, he said finally. A loan shark. Dangerous. Your father's been mixed up with him before. Elaine, the lawyer, leaned forward. If Malloy's involved, this isn't just family drama anymore. It's a financial crime. If your parents owe him, he might be using you as leverage. I shivered. So they're not just trying to guilt me. They're trying to sell me. Elaine's eyes hardened. Then we need to move fast. Freeze your accounts, tighten security, and start documenting every encounter. This could get ugly. 2. Nights later, my phone rang. Unknown number. Again. This time, it was a girl's voice. Hannah? I froze. Who is this? It's Lila, she whispered. Your sister. I stayed silent. They don't know I'm calling. Please don't hang up. I think they're planning something. Something about Richard. My blood ran cold. What do you mean? Her voice trembled. They keep saying you'll be nothing without him. That once he's gone, everything comes back to us. I don't know what they mean, but I'm scared. Before I could ask more, the line went dead. I sat there in the dark, phone pressed to my ear, heart pounding. Was she telling the truth, or was this another trap? Either way, one thing was clear. My parents knew their time was running out, and that made them more dangerous than ever. The next morning, I found an envelope taped to my front door. Inside was a single piece of paper. In bold block letters, it read, "Stop digging, or Richard pays first." I knew then, this wasn't just my fight anymore. They were coming for the man who had saved me, and I couldn't let that happen. By now, the lies weren't enough. The stalking wasn't enough. My parents had teamed up with a man far more dangerous than I ever imagined, and their latest message was clear. If I didn't stop digging, my uncle, the only man who had ever truly protected me, would pay the price. That night, I drove straight to Richard's mansion. I found him on the porch, reading by the glow of a single lamp. I handed him the note, my hands trembling. He read it slowly, then looked up at me. "They're desperate," he said, calm. Too calm. "Desperate enough to hurt you," I whispered. He reached over, squeezed my hand. "Let them try. I've dealt with worse than loan sharks in this town." But I saw the shadow in his eyes. He wasn't as unshakable as he wanted me to believe. 2 days later, the hospital called me into HR. The director's face was stiff, professional. "Hannah, we've received complaints. Families are saying you're distracted, unfit to provide care. Some have even questioned your background." My heart sank. Complaints? From who? He slid a folder across the table. Inside were printed emails, anonymous, but filled with venom. She abandoned her real family. She's unstable, dangerous around children. She's a fraud, living off stolen wealth. I recognized the words, the rhythm. My mother's poison. I gripped the folder, tears stinging my eyes. "This isn't true. None of this is true," the director sighed. "We'll conduct a review. For now, take a leave of absence." It felt like the floor collapsed beneath me, my patience, my purpose, ripped away by their lies. I stumbled out of the hospital into the hot Georgia sun. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. Everything I had built, everything I clung to, slipping like sand through my fingers. I thought of calling Elaine, the lawyer, thought of running to Richard. But all I could do was sit in my car, gripping the steering wheel, whispering, "They won't win. They can't win." But in that moment, it felt like they already had. 3 nights later, it happened. I came home from the grocery store, juggling bags of milk and bread, when I noticed my front door. It was ajar. My chest tightened. I set the bags down quietly, my heart hammering. I stepped inside. The living room was torn apart. Cushions slashed, drawers yanked open, and on the dining table, a single knife stabbed into the wood, pinning down a photograph. A picture of me. And Richard, scrawled across the photo in red ink, were the words, "Next." I stumbled back, my breath ragged. Then I heard it. Footsteps upstairs. I grabbed my phone, dialing 911 with shaking fingers, but before I could press send, he appeared at the top of the stairs. Frank Malloy, the loan shark, the man from the photograph. He descended slowly, a cruel smirk twisting his lips. "Evening, sweetheart," he drawled. "You've been busy, asking questions that ain't yours to ask." My voice trembled. "Get out of my house." He chuckled. "Oh, I will. But first, a little message. Pay your father's debt, or Richard's fancy little world comes crashing down." He stepped close enough that I could smell the cigarette smoke clinging to his jacket. Then he leaned in, whispering, "TikTok, princess." And just like that, he slipped out the door into the night. The police came. They dusted for prints, filed a report, and told me to stay somewhere safe. But we both knew it wouldn't stop him. I packed a small bag and drove straight to Richard's. When he saw me, pale and shaking, he pulled me into his arms. "What happened?" he demanded. I told him everything. The knife, the photograph, the man. His face hardened. "They've crossed a line." That night, lying awake in the guest room, I stared at the ceiling and made a vow. They had already taken my childhood. They would not take my future. They would not take Richard. And if I had to expose every ugly secret, every debt, every betrayal, to stop them, I would. But I didn't know then how close they were to breaking Richard too. They had taken my job, they had broken into my house, and now they were threatening the only man who had ever truly protected me, my Uncle Richard. But the thing about liars is this: no mask lasts forever. And soon, people started to see the truth for themselves. Savannah summers are thick with humidity and gossip. Every year, Richard hosted a garden fundraiser at his estate, a tradition, raising money for children's hospitals. This year, I wanted to cancel. But Richard insisted. "If you hide," he told me firmly, "they win. Stand beside me. Let people see you." So I stood in his garden, surrounded by roses and string lights, smiling tightly as guests arrived. And then, I saw them. My parents. They walked in arm in arm, my mother's pearls gleaming, my father in a crisp linen suit, like they belonged, like they hadn't left me for dead 15 years ago. Claire spotted them before I could move. She whispered, "Hannah, what are they doing here?" I swallowed hard. "I don't know." My mother approached first, her voice loud enough for others to hear. "Hannah! There you are, darling. We've been telling everyone how proud we are of you." I froze. The audacity nearly stole my breath. Guests turned, curious. Whispers rippled through the crowd. Richard stepped forward, his voice sharp. "You have no right to be here." My father's smile tightened. "We're family, Richard. Surely you wouldn't keep us out of a family event." Richard's eyes blazed. "Family? You abandoned Hannah. I took her in when you wouldn't lift a finger. Don't you dare pretend you have any claim to her now." Gasps broke through the guests. People glanced between us, eyes widening. The mask had cracked. I heard the murmurs. "Is that true? They left her with Richard? After all this time?" My mother's face paled, her smile trembling. "Richard exaggerates, but—" Claire stepped in. Her voice rang clear. "No, he doesn't. Hannah told me everything, and I've seen the letters, the threats." My heart clenched, gratitude mixing with terror. Because now the truth wasn't whispered in shadows. It was bleeding into the open. My father snapped, his composure shattering. "Ungrateful brat!" he shouted, pointing at me. We gave you life. And this is how you repay us? Parading lies in front of strangers? The garden fell silent. Every eye is on him. Richard's voice was low, steady. You gave her life, Charles, and then you threw it away. I will never forgive you for that. My father's face turned red. He opened his mouth, but my mother grabbed his arm, hissing, "Enough!" They stormed out, whispers following them like a storm cloud. I stood frozen, my heart racing. For the first time, people had seen, not just my pain, not just my collapse, but their cruelty. And yet, instead of relief, I felt something else. Fear. Because if they were losing control in public, what would they do in private? Later that night, as the last guests left, a man lingered by the gate. Jason, an old business associate of my father's. He approached cautiously. Hannah, I shouldn't be telling you this, but Charles owes a lot of people, dangerous people. He's been bragging that once Richard's gone, the money and the house are his. People are starting to laugh at him. No one believes he can pull it off. I swallowed hard. So he's desperate. Jason nodded. Desperate men do stupid things. Be careful. The next morning, the Savannah Gazette ran a column. Whitmore family drama spills into public fundraiser. The article painted me sympathetically. Richard, too. But my parents? It described my father's outburst, my mother's trembling denial. For once, the cracks in their perfect mask were visible to everyone. But just when I felt a flicker of hope, an envelope arrived in my mailbox. Inside was a newspaper clipping of the article. Across it, scrawled in red marker, "Public humiliation comes with a price." I gripped the paper, my pulse racing, because the cracks were widening, and soon something was going to break. At Richard's fundraiser, their masks finally slipped, my father's rage, my mother's trembling denial, and the town saw it all. But humiliation doesn't end people like them. It makes them dangerous. It makes them desperate, and in their desperation, they left behind cracks I could finally use. Elaine spread the papers across her desk, her voice sharp with focus. These, she said, pointing to bank statements, are your father's gambling debts. And these, she tapped another pile, are transfers made using your mother's account, straight into Frank Malloy's hands. I stared, my stomach tight. So it's real. They're in business with him. Elaine nodded. And this is your shield. With this, they can't touch your inheritance. They can't touch Richard's estate. If they push further, we expose it all. I whispered. We have enough? Her lips curved into a thin smile. We have more than enough. But Hannah, once this goes public, there's no going back. This will destroy them. Destroy them. The words echoed in my head. Part of me still saw my mother's tearful eyes on the porch that night. Part of me still longed for the apology. That never came. But every other part of me, every wound, every sleepless night, every threat, knew this wasn't about forgiveness anymore. It was about survival. 2 nights later, a note slipped under my door. Handwritten, shaky. Meet me at Forsyth Park. Midnight. Come alone. Lila, my gut screamed trap. But I went. She was there, sitting on a bench under the oaks, hugging her knees. She looked young. Too young to be dragged into this mess. When she saw me, she stood quickly. You came. I kept my distance. What do you want? Her eyes filled with tears. I need you to know. Mom and Dad, they're planning something. They keep saying Richard won't be around much longer, that once he's gone, the house is theirs. They've been talking to lawyers, making claims. My stomach dropped. Claims? On what grounds? They say you don't deserve it, that you were never really his daughter, that you'll be exposed. She reached into her bag, pulled out a USB drive. I stole this. Emails, documents. Dad's been hiding them. I don't want to be part of this anymore. I stared at the tiny drive, my breath catching. Why give this to me? Her voice cracked. Because you're my sister, and I think I need you more than they do. Back at home, I plugged in the USB with shaking hands. Folder after folder opened, emails between my father and Malloy, plans, threats, discussions about selling property under fake names, mentions of me. Hannah won't fight if she loses her license. My throat closed. They weren't just spreading rumors. They were strategizing to destroy me completely, and worse. Richard's name appeared again and again. The old man's estate is the real prize. The next day, Claire called. Her voice was urgent. Hannah, you need to know. People are talking differently now. After the fundraiser, after the Gazette piece, no one's buying your father's act anymore. They're starting to ask questions. I closed my eyes, whispering, finally. But then she added, be careful. Cornered animals bite. I walked through the streets of Savannah that evening, feeling the shift in the air. For years, I had been invisible. For months, I had been painted as heartless. Now, the cracks in their lies were spreading, and the truth was starting to shine through. But it wasn't enough to let gossip do the work. I had the files, the proof, and I knew what had to come next. I showed Richard the files. He sat in silence for a long time, his hand gripping the armrest of his chair. Finally, he said, they've been circling me like vultures for years. But now we clip their wings. He looked at me, eyes fierce. Hannah, are you ready for what this means? Once we expose them, there's no going back. Your parents will fall. Publicly. Legally. Completely. My voice trembled, but I steadied it. They left me once. They already destroyed the family we could have had. This time, they don't get to destroy me. That night, I sat at my desk, staring at the growing mountain of evidence. Bank records, guardianship papers, the USB drive, all lined up, all ready. For the first time in years, I felt steady, strong. Not the abandoned girl on the porch, not the trembling nurse in the break room, but Hannah, the woman who would finally expose them. I didn't know yet that the confrontation would come sooner than I imagined. And when it came, it would shatter everything. I had the files, the evidence, the truth. For years, my parents had painted me as heartless, ungrateful, a daughter who abandoned them. But now, I was ready to show the world who they really were, and once I did, there would be no going back. It wasn't criminal court, yet. Elaine filed for a protective order to secure Richard's estate, making it clear my parents had no claim. But the hearing was open. People came. Neighbors, colleagues, even reporters. When my parents walked in, they wore masks of dignity. My mother's pearls gleamed. My father's suit was pressed, his stride confident. But I knew the truth. And soon, everyone else would too. Elaine stood, her voice sharp. Your Honor, my client, Hannah Whitmore, has endured years of harassment from the very people who abandoned her at 13 years old. Today, we present not only her guardianship records, but documented evidence of her parents' debts, fraud, and collusion with known criminals. Gasps rippled through the gallery. My father sneered. Lies. All lies. She's ungrateful, poisoned by Richard's money. Elaine calmly held up the USB. Then perhaps you'd like to explain these emails. Mr. Whitmore? Screens lit up. Words appeared. My father's own messages to Frank Malloy. Once Richard's gone, we'll finally have what's ours. Hannah won't fight. She's too soft. The courtroom fell silent. My mother tried to speak, her voice trembling. We were desperate, but the judge's gavel slammed. Enough. The evidence is clear. Hannah Whitmore was legally and permanently placed under Richard Whitmore's guardianship 15 years ago. Charles and Margaret Whitmore relinquished their parental rights. Any claim to her estate or Richard's is hereby denied. Furthermore, I'm referring this matter to the district attorney for investigation into potential fraud. My father's face drained of color. My mother's shoulders slumped. The mask was gone. The next morning, the headline blazed, "Parents abandon daughter at 13, now accused of fraud and debt scheme." The article told my story, not the lies, the truth. At the hospital, colleagues looked at me differently, not with suspicion, but with sympathy, respect. Claire hugged me, whispering, "I'm sorry I ever doubted you." For the first time in years, I felt seen, but it wasn't over. That evening, as I left Richard's house, I found them waiting by the gate. My father's voice was hoarse, broken. "You think you've won? You think this is the end? You've destroyed us, Hannah." My chest tightened, but my voice stayed steady. "No. You destroyed yourselves. I just stopped hiding it." My mother's eyes were glassy. "We're still your parents," I whispered. "No. You were my parents once. And then you chose to stop." I turned, walking back through the gates. I didn't look back. That night, I sat on Richard's porch, the cicadas buzzing in the summer dark. For years, I had carried the weight of their betrayal like a stone around my neck. But now, the stone was gone. This wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't peace. It was clarity. Clarity that family isn't defined by blood. It's defined by love. By action. By who stays when everyone else leaves. Richard was my family. Claire was my family. And maybe, one day, even Lila could be. But my parents? They were just strangers who shared my name. If this story touched you, don't forget to like and subscribe to Unspoken Vows for more real confessions. And tell me, would you forgive someone after such a betrayal? Or would you walk away forever?